Hi guys, and welcome to pasta tutorial. First things first, you need some really good flour. I've got this Italian 00 tipo flour. It's really quite fine and it makes a really nice pasta dough. You want I'm pouring 600 grams in. I've got 6 eggs, so that's roughly 100 grams of flour and 1 egg per person per serve.
Anytime I need to see your face, I just close my eyes.
Right, so the next thing you want to do, you're going to want to make a pile of flour on the bench and make a well in the center, because that's where your eggs are going to go. So just make a hole with your hands and crack those eggs in one by one.
I need to, I want to, come stand a little bit closer, breathe in and get a bit higher. You'll never know what hit you when I get to you. I don't know if I need that.
So alright, so once you've done that, you want to incorporate all the egg mixture in with your fingers, like I'm doing now. And you want to start from the inside and then slowly work the flour in, that way you won't get egg all over the bench. And then you want to keep working it together until you get a really smooth, nice dough.
It is what I live for, but I look and then I smell up a feeling like I'm down on the floor and I don't know what I'm in for. Conversation.
Now this part is really messy and you probably will flick dough all over the bench like I did, but that's okay because it's all part of the fun process. Now for the pasta itself, I got my machine probably from a good supermarket a couple of years ago for about $50. They're quite easy to find these days. All you need to do is just clamp it to the bench and portion up your dough, flatten it out a bit and slowly work it through with the settings on the side, starting from the big one, working your way down to a thinner pasta. Making sure that you're flouring as you go along because it will stick to the bench otherwise. Now you can leave the pasta as it is like that and portion it into squares, and that's how you got your lasagna. But what I'm doing is I'm feeding my pasta again through the spaghetti slicer. Now you want to make sure still that you've got really floured surface because otherwise your little strands will stick together. And don't press it down too tight, just keep it nice and loose like that. All ready for when it goes into the pot of boiling water. Now, alternatively, you can let this dry. You can let it dry out probably overnight if you like until it goes kind of crispy. And you can just keep that in an airtight container for maybe a week or so. Because it's got no preservatives in it though, I wouldn't probably keep it longer than a couple of weeks. Also, you could freeze it in an airtight container and it still works really well, or just keep it in the fridge for a couple of days, but after a couple of days your dough might start to turn grey as it would have oxidized, but it's probably best to have it straight away. So the other shapes I've been working on just into little squares, and at the moment those ones there's orecchiette, which is ears. So you just need to grab a little ball of dough and push it down really tight, drag it towards you, and it makes these little sort of ear-shaped pieces. The farfalle, which is the butterflies, or most people like to call them bow ties. You just need little squares and you pinch them together, and what I'm doing here is just you fold your lasagna sheets in half. For a thinner cut you can have your linguine, for a bit thicker you've got fettuccine, and the big ones is pappardelle. Right, so we've done some fresh pasta, now we're going to do some stuffed pasta. We're making some ravioli today, big ones, with a nice ricotta cheese filling. It's really just a plain filling, but it goes so nice with so many different sauces. I'm just going to crumble 500 grams of ricotta cheese, which you can get from most sort of supermarket deli counters. It's quite easy to come by these days. Then I've got some Parmesan cheese, a nice really strong Parmesan cheese, just to sort of make a bit of flavour in there. I'm using a microplane grater to grate that in. Microplane graters are fantastic because they're so cheap and you can get them from almost anywhere. You can do anything from chocolate to cheese, citrus fruit, herbs, spices, all that kind of thing. Crack 1 egg in there just to make the mixture all come together, and about half a half a nutmeg. Alright, that's probably about a teaspoon, but if you can get the whole stuff, it's better. And salt and pepper, just a taste. Nice good shake in there. And then stir it all around with a wooden spoon just to incorporate all the flavours. It doesn't have to be too smooth, you can leave it quite lumpy, that's fine. I like a bit of texture with my one. Right, and flour your surface down, put your pre-rolled lasagna sheets down. It doesn't need to be cut up already because we can do that later on. So spoon out little spoons of your mixture onto the lasagna sheet. And you want a pastry brush, just dipped in water. Put water all the way, brush it all around the edges just so the top sheet will stick down to the bottom sheet. And when you're laying it down on top, make sure when you're pressing it down that you press right up to the filling and that there's no air trapped inside. Because if there's any air trapped inside, the air will expand during the cooking process and your raviolis will burst and you'll have bits of ricotta cheese and filling floating all around the water. So now what I'm doing, I'm just cutting it up with a knife, just portioning it into nice big sort of squares, or you can make whatever shapes you like. You can use cookie cutters, whatever. I just like my ones nice and big because it looks really rustic and fun on a plate. Make sure you use happy eggs, nice organic fun. So I'm putting about a big sort of tablespoon of butter in a saucepan. Make sure the pan's nice and hot to start with, but then you want to turn it down. And do this towards the end of the cooking process. My raviolis have been on the pot for about 5 minutes, I think. They probably take about 10 to 12 minutes to cook, or until they're as soft as you like. So swirl the butter around in a pan while it's melting away. And add a bit of olive oil, just to stop it from burning too much. Now we're making a really nice sage and brown butter sauce. It's just a really simple sauce, it just goes so well because I want the flavour of the nutmeg and the cheese to come out through the pasta. And when pasta's so fresh, you should be tasting the pasta, not the sauce. So throw a handful of sage leaves in there. These are going to crispen up and go nice and brown and crunchy, and add an element of texture to your dish. Now you can turn the heat down a bit because you don't want them to burn. So after they've cooked a little bit, you want a good shake of salt in there and pepper. Just for a bit more flavour. And you're also going to want to get your microplane grater or other garlic crusher, and you want to mince probably about half a clove of garlic into there. Again, do this towards the end because your garlic is going to burn too much and then you'll get bitterness. Add a bit more oil if you like, if it's looking a bit too dry. And once you've got your pasta down, sprinkle some parmesan cheese and then the rest of your topping on there, and voila! Buon appetito!